right, next up, we are here. We have created something that is undeniably impressive. As you can see, very, very fun. And we're ready to print this very impressive and complicated thing. So there are a couple ways that you can do this. I am going to show you both of them to actually get this thing printed, because modeling is only the first half. We want to actually have our physical thing. So say you have your thing printed. Here it is in Fusion. The first thing you need to do, no matter where you're printing or how, is to export this file. So you first would go up here to File and Export. And then you have a bunch of things to fill out. You can go figure out where you want to save it. That's important. Make sure that you name it something that you know. And then you'll also see all of these options for what you want to save it as. You would want to save this thing as an STL. I'll just put it in downloads because it'll be easier for me to find that way. So you want to save it as a .stl file. Export this thing. It will take a second to export it, and then it will be exported into the folder that you specified. That's step one. The way that we explain for you how to complete the printing is through Maker Commons. You'll see an assignment that looks something like this. Look at your own canvas to make sure. You'll see something that looks something like this, and you are then instructed to go print it for Maker Commons. What is this? Maker Commons is a place in the library that will print your prints for you. They will use their 3D printers, and then you will go pick it up when it's done. So you don't really have to be, part of the process or anything like that. So let's go through Maker Commons so that you can see how this is done. You'll see a link somewhere in the assignment to Maker Commons, or you can just search makercommons.psu.edu. You will then want to log in to 3D Printer OS. Well, actually, first, you need to enter your class code if you are printing for a class to get access to that. So let's log into 3D Printer OS, and I'll show you how to do that as well. You'll get a page that looks like this where it asks you to sign in. You will go to SSO. You will type in Penn State, and then it will log you in. You have to be going through Penn State. There's a couple different things that make it sometimes annoying, and it sometimes hates itself when you try to log into it. Try a different browser. That's kind of the biggest thing. Some browsers don't like it. I don't know. Also try logging out of everything. If you're logged into an account on a browser that's not the Penn State email account, sometimes it automatically tries to associate that with logging in. So if you do have some issues beyond that, let me know. There's always a couple people that can't get into Maker Commons for the life of them. But after you use SSO successfully, you will get a page on Maker Commons that looks like this. Before doing anything, you'll have some tutorial ones to mess around with. So don't think about those yet. Before you do anything, come up to the top to Printers. Go over here to the 3 dots and add Workgroup Printers. You should see nothing here, first of all. Come over here, add Workgroup Printers. You will get an access code from your instructor. If I'm your instructor, I will give you one. If I'm not, then you will also get one. You have to type in that access code. Sometimes if a lot of people are, this is crazy, but sometimes if a lot of people are typing it in at the same time, it doesn't let you, so you just kind of have to keep doing it until it lets you. Make sure that there's no spaces or anything, put it exactly as the code was written by your instructor, and then you will connect to Workgroup, and then when you connect to Workgroup, a printer looks something like this will appear as an option. That is step one. Now you are connected to the printer and can actually send things to it. Now if we go back to our files, you should see some tutorial options. If you go over here to projects, you will also see a bunch of ducks that you can use to practice. And this is where you can add your files. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll go to add files, select from computer. I will go to wherever I saved that. Right here, there's my STL. And when you upload that, look, you can see it's there, it's real. You can upload your files, you can make project folders and things like that and put things in different spots. It will show up here in your files as an STL. Then you will go and lay it out. So this is where you can change some things up. You can move it around. If you're putting multiple things on the same build plate, you want to, give some space, make sure that you're leaving enough space at the edges and things like that. You can scale it. You can make it, bigger, smaller, wider, whatever. Usually you would be doing this inside your CAD model, so it would be properly sized before you come into this point. But if not, that's fine. You could do it in the slicer. Rotating is probably the thing that you might be most likely to use. If you want to rotate it, like for example, it was on the side, and I probably would want this thing to print flat up and down just because the orientation would look a little bit better. So you can come over here, 90-degree rotation here, and let's reset it just so that I can make this a little bit easier. So I'm getting all of the right angles. So if I come into rotate and I get this menu, let's minus 90 here, and that'll put me like flat the opposite direction. So let's go with that. Make sure that you can center it. You can make sure that it's actually on the print bed. And if you're not sure what the most optimal way to rotate this thing is, there's an optimal rotate button, and it will guess for you. And it's saying that this is probably the best way that the printer is going to recognize it. So there we go. At this point, you can also add other files. So if you have another file, you want to also put this duck here on the print bed, you can do that. Let's move the duck over here, out of the way a little bit, so you can print multiple things at the same time. That is also beneficial. However you want this to do. There's an undo button, another undo button, great. However you want this to look is great. So at this point, you've got everything. Let's get the duck, move it over. Let's move this over. Cool, we're happy with this. That's when you can come over to slice the print. Now, I'm not gonna go through what all of these things mean. You can look into that. It's basically like, how dense do you want your print to be? How much space between each layer do you want to have? The only thing that's important here is that you make sure you have support built in, organic support, usually kind of the best. And then you can go to your slice when you have everything ready. When you slice the thing, it's going to create what is called a G code of your print. And then you will go to print, you will select the printer. This one is for last semester, so obviously the class is closed, and then you will be able to print. At this point, if you haven't registered the printer, nothing will show up here, and it'll be a little bit confusing. So you got to make sure that you go in and you add that printer. But you can go back and forth. I've made this G code now, so you can come back into the G code when you want to print and things like that. The order doesn't necessarily matter. Now let's talk about the other way that you can print. After you send to Maker Commons or whatever, you'll get an email. They will tell you when it's ready to be picked up. You can go pick it up, not be involved in the process. The problem with this is it gets very packed because there's like 900 students trying to print things at the same time. So if you would like, you can also have the option to print things yourself using the printers in the Learning Factory or in the third floor makerspace if they are open. This can be done, whenever they are open and whenever they're free to be used. You just have to sit there while the thing is printing and not leave it, by itself. So The way that you can do that is, first, you need one of these. You need something that allows you to lay out and slice your STL file. So the best thing to get is the Prusa slicer. If you literally just search like Prusa slicer, you can download it. It's free. You don't even have to make an account. You would just pick how you're downloading it. You can use it on the web if you want. But when you do download it, you can just install, skip through everything, and it will come up with something like this, where you have to select printers that you are going to be printing at. So you can make a custom one, a custom profile, but for a lot of the Prusa slicer, it has all of the printers built in. So if you forget, no problem. But on the Learning Factory website, it shows us that we have two types of printers that you might be able to use. The Prusa Core 1 and 2 Prusa, there's 4 of these, 2 Prusa MK4Ss. So those are the printers that you're going to be printing at. So here's the Prusa Core 1. There's a lot of Core 1 options. I'm pretty sure that they're similar enough. But there's there's so many of these. Prusa MK4 down here, MK2. What was it that I already forget? It's MK4S. So where is that? Let's look at the MK4S. Say that's the one that I'm going to be using. MK3.9, here's MK4. Here's MK4S. We're going to go with the nozzle. There's like the nozzle that's most common plus the alternate types of nozzles that you might get. So I'm just going to select this one. Let's go to next. You can select other types of printers if you want to as well. Let's just go next here. Let's finish. We'll install the profile of that printer. And at any time, you will be able to add other printers as well by going up here and to like your printers section. And then you can add and remove printers here if you end up going with a different one. So on your plater, we've got something similar to what we saw in the Maker Commons. Obviously, the first thing that you're going to have to do is add a file. Let's go back to our downloads over here. Here's our STL file, and there we go. Basically, the same thing that we saw, just formatted a little bit differently. Over here is where you can see your positions, your rotations. So let's make sure that we rotate that 90 degrees so that it's flat. And you can play with this for as much as you want. And then my face is blocking it. Why would I even have my face, honestly? It's really not necessary. But down here is slice now. You will slice it. It will appear. And then you will see an export of this G code. I will click that. Make sure that you save it as something that makes sense. I didn't, but I know where it is. And then that G code file, so now let's go back into my downloads here. Into my downloads. Here it is. This is a G code file. You will put this on a flash drive. So on a USB thumb drive, plug this into the printer, and then it will print that G code. So hopefully this helps with a couple different ways to actually get your things printed.